Tell me what happened the day you were arrested.
Oh, it was alright. In the morning, my boss came in and said, "Boys, the Gestapo's here and will pick you up." That was like this. So, and he picked us up. I mean, which was outside Berlin. He took us to Berlin, and he said, "Look around here. This will be the last time you see the sky and the sun and the stars." So I stayed there 2 weeks, and then I was brought to the Hamburger Straße, from where I went to Auschwitz. The day, the hour, I arrived in the Hamburger Straße, which was a Jewish school before the war. A transport was just leaving for Auschwitz. My transport, I made some research on it. On the 10th of January 1943, we were over 2,000 people, and 100 people were selected to march into the camp. This was the first transport of German Jews from Germany where 100 people had the chance to be alive. All German Jews from Cologne, Frankfurt, Berlin, Hamburg, they were all gassed at times they arrived in Auschwitz. And this was the first transport from Germany, of German Jews, where 100 people marched into the camp. From this 100, I know 5 survived, and I'm one of the 5.
Tell me about the selection.
When we arrived in Auschwitz, the cattle trains were open, they came in with guns, the dogs screaming. What I will never forget, they took the babies in Kälte. The Obersturmbannführer Schwarz was staying there. Left or right? Left, you were alive. Right, you were going in a gas camera. As I said before, we were 100 people marching into the main camp. Where the famous sign is Arbeit macht frei, means work make free. It was in January, it was ice, snow, cold. They put us in the washroom, big washroom. We stayed there overnight. Early in the morning, the S came, everybody out, take off all your clothes. We were staying outside in ice or snow naked. Some people collapsed and died right there. And after maybe an hour, they started to put a tattoo on the arm. My number is 86673, and for shaving our hair off, and then was thrown out again outside, and then put in the other barrack where they give us some clothing. After that, they told us to line up, and from the 100 people, we were about 80 or 90 who were sent to Goldesschau, which was a sub-camp of Auschwitz. It was a cement factory. And when we walked out in the morning, you walked out maybe with 80, 100 people. They said you're only allowed to bring 60 back. Made no difference. You shot them, you killed them, and you got a piece of bread in the morning, you got some soup in the evening, which was water, or a little tea, which they put everything else in, and that you have to live on it. In the beginning, people were dying like flies on sicknesses, they were shot, they were killed, people tried to run away, they were caught, they were hanged. We were staying outside in Appel for hours and watched our brothers hanged in front of us. Especially they were later on waiting for Kol Nidre, Yom Kippur to do those things. And what I want to find out, after a month I was in Golischow, there was an outbreak of typhus, affected also SS. The whole camp was disinfected. We were assembled in the great hall for the whole night, and we had to sing. Each nationality had to sing its own song the whole night long.
What song did you have to sing?
German songs.
Do you remember any of the songs?
No, I do not. I do not. Next morning, the SS medical orderly looked everyone over to see if they were still fit to work. Those considered unfit were to be sent to the main camp in Auschwitz, meaning the gas chamber. I was picked too. The SS took down my number, meaning Auschwitz, the gas chamber. In the evening, we were back in our bunks. The truck from Auschwitz came. They called the number taken down, including mine. I did not move or react and stayed in my bunk. Incredible, nobody checked for the missing number, which was highly unusual. I was one of those lucky coincidences that saved my life then. The next day, the blankets who were disinfected by these chemicals were still very strong chemical, and people, it was cold, it was January, was put it over their heads, and then the next morning, left to me, right to me, they were all dead from the chemical. Somehow, I survived that too. Maybe there was some that I might have pulled it over my head too, but maybe some air came in somehow.
What made you decide not to move?
Look, at that time, I was just a short time there, and I saw what was going on, and I took a chance. So what can happen? If they find me or look for me and take me, I go to the gas chamber anyway. So I just took a chance, and it was very unusual. They didn't check it out, nothing. And I mean, this was one of the many incidents through all the years that just was, if anybody asked you how you do it, it was absolutely just luck.
You had mentioned when you were in the smaller camp carrying the stones that you would go out with 80 people in the morning and they would only come back with 60. That was their order.
Yeah.
What did they do? What did you see that allowed them to not come back with so many people each day?
Some were beaten to death, some were shot to death, and they had to clear the trees to build the railroads, which they put dynamite in. They didn't tell the people to move away, and they dynamited, and the people who were nearby, they got killed from it.
It was just random?
Yeah, just random. And the capos, which was some of Jewish descent too, they were very participant in to do the dirty jobs for the SS too.
What kind?
Beating us and hitting us and jumping at us, kicking us.
Were you ever beaten?
Yes, I was beaten very often.
Do you remember the circumstances?
It doesn't have to be circumstances. Just the couple passed by and he didn't like what he saw or whatever. It doesn't have to be a special incident to be beaten up or kicked or something like that.
Did you ever witness someone trying to run away?
Oh yes, many times.
Could you describe?
I wanted to run away myself, but somehow one of the capos, he stopped me. Don't do it, don't do it. So, don't change it.
Could you?
I want to tell a fellow who was on my transport from Berlin and Auschwitz. He couldn't take it anymore. He walked out. He walked outside the camp, ran into the toilet. Somehow he changed his uniform. Yeah. Went back. Somebody must have helped him. Went back to Berlin. Stayed in Berlin. In '44 he went to movie house. They arrested him somehow. They sent him back to Auschwitz. Now you will ask me, how come you know the story? I will tell you. After, I don't want to go too far. After I was liberated and went from Munich back to Hamburg, we stopped over in Hanover. And there, on the next table, was sitting this fellow. And he told me his story. And he told me that when the Germans saw his number and found out that he ran away, they said, if somebody succeeds to run away from Auschwitz without going in court, they didn't do anything to him. They put him in one of the camps and he survived and was liberated. I mean, that's one of the most unusual stories. I want to point out something here. You could have had the best job in Auschwitz with extra food, and if you were in the early years in Auschwitz, usually you had a certain position to survive, and you know how to put yourself in a better position. Coming now to when we marched out of Auschwitz on the 18th of January, or Goleschau where I was, we marched out too in the afternoon on the 18th of January 1945. And we got some bread and I don't know, something else. It was ice and snow, and we marched. People, we were maybe 1,200 people out of the camp. But people, even if they were in the camp several years, you march in the ice and snow day and night with the light closing and everything. People died, some people just collapsed. Anybody who collapsed or died, they were just shot there. And then after 2 days, they put us in the open railroad tracks again, and we went to Sachsenhausen by Berlin, which was about 3 days, 3 nights drive, in open cattle train. And they put so many people in the train, you could hardly breathe. So the people died like flies because there was nothing to eat anymore and they was exhausted. We just threw them out of the train to have some more space. When we arrived in Sachsenhausen, I was so weak, I could not get out of the cattle train. So some people helped me to get out. It was so weak. Then we stayed in Sachsenhausen for about 10 days, 2 weeks, and went to Flossenburg, which is near Bavaria. Then we went to Dachau, and I stayed there a few days, and then we marched out of Dachau and on a road to Bad Tölz. The SS disappeared, and somebody on the army, general assistant, something like that. He brought us into a camp called Buchwald, B-U-C-H, Buchberg, B-U-C-H-B-E-R-G, which is between Munich and Bad Tölz. And there I was liberated about on the 1st of May 1945.
And who liberated you?
The Americans, 6th Army. The first man who came in was a rabbi and gave us some small mezuzahs, I'll never forget. And there, after cooperated, I mean, the America make a big mistake. They give up all kind of foods. They put the whole trucks on the road, and with our stomachs shrank and not used to any kind of food, many people died. So then they got what? They got some cereal and some light food to us. Yeah. And then after 3-4 weeks, this was liquidated camp, and we brought to Feld, I think, which was the biggest DP camp in Europe. And end of July, a friend whom I met there from Hamburg, we went back hitchhiking from Munich to Hamburg. That's about 600 miles. And then in July 1945, everything destroyed. It was no easy task, but we succeeded.
Getting back to the DP camp, what were conditions like there?
You mean after the war?
Yes.
I mean, they were well organized. We got enough food, and Eisenhower came there himself, and we got medical help and everything we needed. When I told them I want to go to Hamburg, they gave me all kind of papers which I could present to the American soldier or later on to the British soldiers even.
But when you were in the camps, did you pray? Did you?
Not that I think of. No. It was so you could not comprehend what was going on every minute. Everything could have gone was happened. Something happened there. The killing, the shooting, the beating, the starvation, and everything. I mean, some that you have had not, I wouldn't say no time for it, but you try to push it away maybe.
How have your wartime experiences, how do they affect you today?
I don't want to say I'm a cynic, but I was hoping that the world would have learned something from what was, if you realize, if you see now, 27 million Russians were killed in the war. 80 million people were killed during the war. Never in the history of mankind were so many people affected by a war like this. By one war, by one man. And I'm talking about 80 million killed. I'm not talking people who were injured or devastating for life or anything. How can, as I said in many other things, how can you comprehend 80 million people killed? How can you comprehend 1.5 million children, babies killed? And they said, it's enough, we don't want to talk about it. We will, as long as we live, as long as we have any breath in ourselves, we will talk about it, if you like it or not. Like now the war in Yugoslavia, people get killed, nobody cares. Do you hear people really killed? Or then Africa, all those people, 1 million people, who cares? Nobody cares. They care if something happened here in Oklahoma, because it's in their own backyard. And as I told you before, 14 children were killed. Each child is precious to every people, to their family and so on. But when we said 1.5 million children and babies were murdered and killed and starved and everything, the world was quiet. We asked after the war, why didn't you bomb the railroads to Auschwitz? Why didn't you bomb the crematorium Auschwitz? The answer was, we needed the airplanes. So
What?
how, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, how can you think about it? That this is the answer, because they knew already in 1942, the Americans and the English, because the Poles, they were smuggling out what was going on. They knew about Auschwitz, what was going on, and nobody gave it them. Nobody did anything.
So, as a final question, what message would you want to give to someone who's watching this tape, let's say 25 years from now?
Sorry to say, in 1995, that the world has not learned much. And hopefully that the future will be a better one for my children and for my grandchildren.